everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Belgian Football Podcast. My name is Ben Jackson. I will be your host once again for this episode. Scott and Joris are also back, so we're all back together after missing out on last week. Guys, how are you doing? Hope you had a decent week off, I guess I could put in inverted commas. The problem was it wasn't a week off, so that's why we couldn't get together.
Yeah, our collective schedules were really cruel to us last week, which is very unusual for us, as all of you good regular listeners know. So it's nice to be back.
Well, partially it was due to being off for me, at least by the end of last week. But that would have been a very late episode anyway otherwise. So I don't think that would have been ideal either. But glad to be back.
Definitely, yeah. There's plenty to talk about, as even though we had a slightly reduced slate of games. So we'll touch on the kind of domestic stuff first, and then we will go into kind of the European action because we have reached the business end, I guess, of the European qualification campaign. So we'll touch on the kind of first leg results from most of the sides involved. But as a result of kind of the European games, Club, Genk and Anderlecht were not involved in domestic action this week. So we only had, I think it was 5 games. Kicked off on Saturday. Standard Liège, they lost 3-0 to Cercle Bruges. Rednick position already into question, which seems a bit bizarre, but yeah, quite early. We'll touch on that potentially if he gets sacked next week. It looks like the Leuven game is a kind of a must win, and we're not even out of August yet. Seems a bit crazy. That's football these days. No kind of talks of sackings in St. Trude at the moment. They beat Zulte Waregem 2-0 to remain unbeaten. Antwerp, they beat Mechelen 2-1 at home. Vaal played pretty well to draw 0-0 at home with Union. And then Leuven finally won a game. They beat Dender, which means Dender are the only side left in the Pro League not to have won a game. I guess we should probably start and have a discussion about the league leaders. St. Truiden, obviously 5 games played, 4 wins, just 1 draw, 13 points, 10 goals scored, 3 conceded, plus a goal difference of +7. They obviously went, like I said, they went to Zulte Waregem. Were given a helping hand in this one by Austrian striker Tobias Heidel getting himself sent off just after half time. In truth, though, having watched this game, I think they were probably deserving of the 3 points even before the red card. Like the way they were playing their football was just really entertaining to watch. And I think it was midway through the first half after they'd kind of strung a tap together, I just thought to myself, like, is this team better? And it's early to say, but is this better than Fink's team? Are they a more rounded team than Fink's team? I was like, because that team, they were great, but then defensively they were a little bit suspect. As this team, that so far they look a little bit better defensively. Kokobi's been really good in goal. He's made some fantastic saves as well. Patrice it's hard to say he's been good defensively because he's just been so attacking, but that does help obviously with the defensive side of things because he's been so good getting forward. The way they use the wings is very Vranken-esque. It's kind of I feel like we're returning to a Vranken style of football that we haven't seen for a while. It seems the players he's got at his disposal seem to really suit him. They've obviously got a goal scorer now, I guess we can say, in Kazuki Goto with his second goal in 2 games. I don't know what you guys think, but I think it's just a matter of time until he's the starting striker there. Ferrari's not a bad player at all, but I just think Goto, if he keeps scoring, like, you can't really ignore him in the slightest. Also, I wanted to mention this because it was probably one of my favourite moments of commentary from the week was Will talking, of course, decided to bring up Lam Kalzi during the game, which, I mean, it's always entertaining. At which point he mentioned that he'd gone to China. He said good luck to Lam Kalzi and good luck to the club that's got him. Nice little kind of sums up the situation Centurion were in last season, having players like him on the books and stuff. And the team seems a little bit more kind of cohesive again, like the Fink side. Like it reminds me of the Fink side with a completely different, I guess, style of play and a little bit of a more robust style of play. So I'm interested to hear what you guys think of them to start the season. I've been impressed. I've been really enjoying watching them play. They've got Cercle Bruges next and Westerlo with those 2 games to come. So Cercle, obviously, they're in good form at the moment, but like the way St. Truiden are playing, they'd probably look at that one and we could probably keep our unbeaten run going if we can get a win or a draw there. Westerlo the same. And then they don't play any of the kind of big sides, inverted commas, once again, until Friday, 19th of September, when they go away to Club. And then they have Genk in back-to-back games. So they then have the derby as well. So the good times could keep rolling for a little bit longer, and they could be going to that with a bit of confidence But yeah, I'm interested to hear what you guys think about them because I've been really enjoying watching them play under Frank, and especially this game against Autobagam. I just love the way the players that they've got at their disposal. Ito, we've spoken about. Yamamoto was really good. A couple of other players really caught the eye. They're a good side to watch, and it's nice to say that because that wasn't always the case last season.
Well, this whole situation, I think, with St Truden touches on something really interesting about football more generally, and that's about kind of the team ethic. I mean, it's a team game, but it shows you how often people forget that, both coaches and fans, and how much football's become about kind of individuals and individual moments rather than this collective. And it's another example of what can happen if you get a really good team dynamic going and you have a coach who's clearly trying to work with, something that is perhaps greater than the individual sum of its parts. But I think there's an element of unfinished business here for St Truden as well. It was really interesting hearing Rankin talk this week about last season being obviously a major disappointment, and there being this sense that over the summer during pre-season they were talking about wanting to put that right by starting well and just putting in some good performances and showing, actually, do you know what, we're better than we showed last year. The big worry hanging over them, of course, was what's going to happen when Bertuccini goes, regardless of other people's performances. And Goto's come in on loan from Anderlecht, 2-2, as Ben was saying, appears to have settled very, very quickly. Looks like he's enjoying himself already. This all comes back to Rankin, I think. We know he's very good at knitting this kind of team ethic together. He's done it everywhere he's been, to varying degrees, of course, but it's something that he does do, and he's doing it here again, I think. There's a lot of talk as well about the work they did over the summer, just about kind of preparing a little bit better for games and just kind of tweaking things. I think their fixture schedule, as Ben was alluding to, has kind of helped. The computer's been kind of pretty kind to them. It's allowed them to kind of build up a head of steam. There tends to be one side almost every year who has a start that surprises you to some degree. And then, they tend to hit a brick wall at some point. So obviously we're kind of hoping that doesn't happen, because that would keep it really pretty interesting. But nobody really expected them to have as strong a start as they did. And they're looking really decent at the moment. I mean, this is their best start since, I think, 88, 89. And then to go back even further, their best start other than that is 65, 66 under Gotals, where they finished as runners-up. So, it's, statistically, which, whatever happens over the next few weeks, this is as good as it kind of gets for them. I think they've just, wiped the slate clean, really, in a way, which is kind of important. And when you look at a club like St Truden, who've always had this thing about being quite short-term in a lot of the recruitment, that's how they tend to approach their recruitment. They're thinking, right, just for this season or just for this window, we're going to get through this kind of period. And that is still the case. Maybe this time some of their choices have been a little bit better, because there were some really interesting names thrown around recently before Goto came in, I thought, as potential striker material for them. And they went for Goto, who I think wasn't a bad shout, actually. He's done all right for Anderlecht and Anderlecht Futures as well. So I think he's acclimatised to Belgium, and I think he's probably ready for this extra exposure now. So, look forward to seeing what they can do in the coming weeks.
Yeah, especially, of course, being Japanese and being in a very Japanese environment. 7 Japanese players came into action this weekend. That's a lot of one specific foreign nationality to feature in a club, in a game in the Belgian Pro League. But yeah, no, they're doing really well. Like Scott mentioned, there's hope is not like we had last season with Dender, for example, who had a really good start, or Westerlo even, I guess, as well last season, who then, kind of petered out towards the end of the season. Of course, still a lot better than Sint-Truiden actually well, they also didn't end up really well last season either. But they're really building up something, it seems. Few caveats extra. So like you already mentioned, like they didn't play anyone this who is currently in the top half of the table. Of course, after if they beat teams, and it's more difficult after these few games to get higher up on the table, of course. But also in 3 of the 5 games, their opponent got a red card. That also does help in combination with not being the better sides in the league generally that they faced. But of course, these are the points that a top side also needs to gain and win those games. So we also saw an example this weekend actually of a top side dropping points against La Louvière. These are the games you need to win to stay in the top of the league, and then build on the confidence you've got from those games. So I'm sure the morale is high in Sint-Truiden at the moment, and rightfully so. You need to win those games. Nobody really expected anything like this, at least after the end of last season, and after losing during the season, of course, already he did help them in the beginning, Bertaccini, as well. Everything is going really well for them at the moment, and maybe they can even indeed build on that confidence and then see how far that brings them this season. Whether they will peter out or if they actually can maintain not this kind of form, but at least a really good form to maybe challenge for Champions playoff position. Ultimately, still very early days to say things like that, of course, especially in combination with they didn't face any competition that played in this Champions playoffs last season, outside of Ghent, of course, who have their own issues still at the moment as well as they had last season. But things are looking good there. So definitely, at least until the international break, it looks like it looks like they really will be going strong. And also touching on that Japanese part again, maybe that also fits in with another thing that Scott mentioned with the discipline. Of course, these are stereotypes, but we tend to avoid to talk about them. But since it's in a positive way this time, I hope people will forgive me to do so. The Japanese players are a bit known for their discipline in general, and that might have helped them in these first weeks of the season. Also at the back, only 3 goals conceded. That's actually maybe the most impressive part of all. With individually maybe not the best players, but collectively indeed doing really well. And Kokubu looking very strong so far this season, more than he did last season. A bit more consistent. Of course, we will have to see how that will continue when the better sides come. But that's already 13 points in the bag for them. Anyway, I'm sure everyone is happy.
Just a couple of things on some of the stats on their numbers. Now, another caveat, XG is a notoriously misleading stat. We know that. So I'm just going to prefix that right now. But Sint-Truiden are third top so far across the season in the opening weeks on XG alone, just behind Anderlecht and Union. And they're third top on big chances created as well, marginally behind Union and Cercle Bruges, which will surprise a lot of people. They're second top on big chances created. So if they can find a solution, and maybe they're starting to, although that's another discussion, what's happening at Cercle at the moment, because they're creating a lot. But yeah, Sint-Truiden are, for a whole host of reasons, creating a lot at the moment. So as long as they can continue doing that, they're going to be picking up more points than they will dropping.
Yeah, no, definitely. And I feel like they're slightly better than some of the teams we mentioned about last year, like Dendo and that. I feel like they have more kind of opportunity to be more consistent. But I don't think we're like, yes, they're definitely going to be a top 6 team or anything like that. But they should avoid the bottom 4. at least. Like that has to be like a singular aim that they have, and then they should be pushing for that kind of playoff match with a side from the top six for European football. And yeah, I'm really intrigued to see how they go against kind of these bigger teams, because the way they play is like it's quite expansive. It's quite like it's that, like I said, that Franken style of getting it out wide as often as possible and getting balls into the box and kind of creating from the wide areas while also having creative players within the midfield areas. And I think, yeah, the midfield's like kind of really impressed me, and it's really strong and it's really like solid. And then Patrice has just been fantastic. And is it Hato on the other side, who sported one of my favourite kind of accessories for a footballer to wear, which was the old like sweat headband, which just, yeah, I really enjoyed the look of that. I feel like we need more of those in football. They were quite hilarious. Don't know how good it is when you're trying to head the ball, but as someone who didn't like heading the ball myself, I can kind of get behind just sticking one on anyway and just letting people know that you have absolutely no intention of sticking your head on that thing. So yeah, let's see how they get on against Circle. I feel like it's a couple of weeks ago you'd have been like, oh well, that could be a tough one for Circle, but the way they've been playing the last two games and they're scoring and they're creating and doing stuff like that, that could be a really exciting game on Friday evening. So definitely want to grab a bottle of your favourite Belgian tipple, alcoholic or non-alcoholic beverage, and sit down and watch that one. It should be a good one. As of recording, tomorrow evening, Rangers are travelling to Club for the second leg of the Champions League qualifier. Club have definitely had to go through this qualification for the Champions League the hard way. RB Salzburg and now Rangers. But yeah, they went to Glasgow, were 3-0 up within 20 minutes, which for the neutrals of us or the people that don't necessarily watch Scottish football seemed like quite a shock. But then you saw the reaction of a certain fan base in Glasgow to that, and they were like, yeah, like we're not too keen on this new bloke we've got in charge. Southampton fans watching will probably be like, yes, just reminds us of the old Premiership days of last season. The first goal was probably some of the worst defending I think we've seen this calendar year, let alone this season. It was just like honking. Vermans nipping in obviously to score. Fantastic finish from him. Shame to see him go down injured. Interesting to see where they go from that. Obviously they've kind of come out, or it appears that the reports are that Gustav Nilsson is no longer required, which I guess you could, and I always thought it was a strange transfer in the first place anyway. So it'd be interesting to see how Testoli does up front. The thing I think about him, and I don't know what you guys think about him, is that I think he gets into positions. He's good at getting into positions and kind of being in the right place. He just can't put it in the back of the net yet. But I feel like if one comes, maybe a couple could come. And I think there's definitely a potential player there for sure. Yeah, what do you guys think? Do you fancy them in the second leg to see this one through? I feel like the way Rangers looked, they just looked a bit uncomfortable in that first leg. Especially in the first half. In the second half, I think grabbing that goal makes you feel like, oh, they are still in it. And Russell Martin's obviously come out and said they're still in it, but it feels like they are struggling to adapt to what he wants them to do. And then obviously at the weekend they drew, was it 1-1 with St Mirren, and their equalising didn't come until the 78th minute. So it's not like they've gone away and absolutely battered someone and are coming back with a little bit of confidence. So early goal from Club, and that should be it. What do you guys reckon?
Yeah, I think an early goal should be enough to settle it. Obviously, it's going to come down to the next goal. I think it's a big ask for Rangers at the moment. You know, this is a Rangers side that aren't big on confidence, and aren't big on bravery or even character. You know, some of those things either. And actually, that first half was in some ways kind of quite shocking, really. I mean, I think Club were surprised, I think, by quite how quickly things got out of hand, really, from a Rangers perspective. And the fans started to leave, en masse, quite early in the game. And we're kind of quite angry about that. The first goal, obviously, horrendous individual mistake, the sorts of things that coaches just cannot stand because, you work hard all week. You do your best, you prepare, you brief, you have your video analysis, the works, and then somebody basically goes and just sits in their hands and gives away a freebie like that. The second, despite Rangers being at fault, I suppose you can criticise them for, in many ways, is down to a slightly cute training ground moving Club's part as well, so it's not all down to mistakes. And the third goal, Brandon Mekola's goal on his 500th appearance is just a brilliant hit, actually. Although, why you allow, a centre-half to be in that position in the first place, giving them that much space is another question. But yeah, it's funny. I mean, I was talking, doing some guest slots for Rangers podcasts, previewing the game, previewing the first leg, and we were talking about players to kind of watch out for. And I did mention Brandon because I knew it was going to be his 500th game. And I don't know, maybe it's my mini crystal ball or something, but I just felt maybe there was something in the offing here because I knew it was a significant night for him. And he did have a nice moment where he ran over to Nicky Hyan, and they both acknowledged in some way the significance of that moment for him. I think it's a step too far for Rangers now. I think this club squad, importantly, are more settled despite the newcomers that are there. I think they've settled quicker than the Rangers newcomers have. I just hope clubs start the game the way that they need to start it. If they start slowly, then that will give Rangers a little bit of encouragement, which is obviously what they're hoping for. But I think this club side are a wee bit too experienced for that. Rangers have to go out, as I was saying to those Rangers podcasts this week while previewing the second leg, that Rangers have to go out and just have a really good go and leave it all out in the park and hopefully come off with no regrets regardless of how it turns out. But yeah, it's all about the next goal. If club can get that, then it's going to be done early, hopefully, from their perspective, and then Nicky Hyan can rotate a little bit and rest a few players. Vermaan's going to be out for a few weeks, so I think Ben's right, Tresoldi will start, and it's a great opportunity for him, I suppose, to kind of show what you can do with a little bit of pressure off at this stage of the season, stage of the game as well. So it'll be interesting to see how he fares with that. But yeah, club big favourites to get it over the line now.
Not really much to add there. I guess, I also do think that they should be safe already. If they don't do similar fuck-ups as, pardon my French there, as Rangers did themselves in the opening stages of the game, of course. But even then, they might have the margin now to recover from that. That's the advantage they would have in that very unlikely scenario anyway, in comparison to the Rangers last week. It's looking good for two Belgian Champions League participants this season.
And we should at least have one in the Europa League, barring the complete and utter collapse back at home. Genk travelled to Poznan. It was 1-1 after 20 minutes. After 48 minutes, it was 5-1 to Genk. So, yeah, job well done, I think we can say on that one. Looking into that, I was like, oh, this could be a trickier game potentially on paper. But then you look at kind of Poznan's recent results, and they've been struggling a little bit. Obviously, they got knocked out of Champions League qualification. Then prior to that game, they'd drawn, I think it was with Kielce at home. So they weren't necessarily on the best run of form. But at home, they're usually pretty formidable, but apparently not in this one. So Joris, obviously, will go to you. Obviously, happy with that result. Although, is there any part of you that thought, if we drop into the Conference League, we could actually get a little bit further, like some other teams have done? Like, was there any part of you thinking that, or are you just like, nah, stick us in the Europa League, more money, more stuff like that?
Mainly getting some confidence and a few wins in a row given the start of the season. So no, and even in general, that's not the mentality that we would aim for. I guess in general, you don't want to not win games. I really hope we're not completely jinxing it here, but yeah, judging by that result, and I don't know how many, because Poznan, of course, have a huge injury list as well, so that didn't play in their favor. I don't know how many of those players will be fit now for the second leg, and even if they are fit, given the results, will they play, or how much time they will play? It was a good result for sure. It was for 5 after 48 minutes, but then also still missed a penalty. I think he did already hit the bar once, I think, or the post, the woodwork anyway, or was it even already the second time that Henk hit the bar? So yeah, that's really it was a walkover in the end. But yeah, there was no part of me, like, even though I know Conference League is looking interesting for Belgian sides this season, and we'll have to see if we will get anyone in there this season as well. That's a different story. But no, it's anyway better to compete against better sides. I believe, regardless of in the Conference League, maybe you would assume with some luck with the draw, you might end up really really far this season as a Belgian side. As a good Belgian side, of course, as well. That's always you need to be at their best anyway. But in the Europa League, that's less the case, or very less likely, or even more luck needed with the draw for sure. But it's like I said, I think it's always good to measure yourself against better opponents, and hopefully take some, regardless of the result of those games, take some of that of those challenges or the learnings into the national league as well, and and get basically improve on certain aspects of the game. Yeah, I'm most happy to see that they finally scored a few goals, even though, like, I'm not buying the efficiency things so much, as I just mentioned. I've seen the things that still went wrong, that Fink was talking about. But it's good that they were able to put a lot of them in against the back of the net, in the back of the net anyway. And yeah, let's see. They even scored from a corner kick. That's always nice. That's I've been hammering so much on that they never do. Hannah scored as well. That's also first in a very long time. Last season he didn't get any goals, for example. So yeah, it can only be a good confidence boost, and hopefully they can take it to the league as well. But Poznan definitely also played a bit more open than many sides in the Belgian league do. And yeah, how they probably should have approached this game as well. But at home, you can't really do that.
Yeah, I can't add anything to that. Genk through.
One side that don't appear to be through, or will probably struggle to get through, will be Anderlecht. 1-1 draw at home to Athens. Athens with 10 men as well for portions of that game. Anderlecht had 20 shots, 10 on target, but only managed to score 1 goal. Thomas Shakosha with 10 saves, to be fair to him. Like, that's a pretty beastly performance from him. It is one of those grounds where you go that it's that classic case. It's a difficult place to go, Greece. Although I think there was an interview with who was it? Was it Huerta? It might have been Huerta of Anderlecht, the Mexican kid, and he was like, to be honest, like, the kind of games that I've played in back home, like, are way more intimidating than what we're going to be facing out there. So he's actually not too worried. So maybe he should definitely get a kind of throw in for this one. But it just feels like I just don't have much confidence in Anderlecht going through. I don't know what you guys think.
Yeah, it's a tricky one. When I saw that result, I did think, I could. Yeah, I was pretty nervous about it. I mean, Anderlecht played well enough to win the first leg and should have won it. They created enough to take a lead. I agree with Huerta. There are definitely more toxic and intense places to go, but I've seen quite a few games, like Athens games, over the years. At kind of this stage of European football, where you get down to having to really step up and go somewhere and get a result. And yeah, I don't really particularly fancy going to Athens to get a result, regardless of who I'm with at the best of times. So it's going to be very tricky. I think Anderlecht are going to have to, regardless, put in a pretty good performance if they're going to get through. They're capable of that, though. I mean, it's about it's about the basics again. Being brave and not letting your fear and anxiety kind of get on top of you and dictate the way that a game goes. Big cojones needed to get this over the line.
Yeah, and my doubts are more indeed about the level of Anderlecht. I still don't trust them. Like, even though, like, they did play well in this first leg, so based on that, if they can replicate something like that and put away some more of those chances, they should be fine. But and I'm also not going to the whole cliche of the cauldron and everything. I don't think that's even the case currently with the new AEK Athens Stadium. I think it's a bit less fierce, or it's a bit further. It's more difficult for them at the moment to create this so-called cauldron atmosphere anyway. But nonetheless, an away game for Anderlecht in Europe. Let's see if they can do something there, and hopefully they can. So otherwise, it's not looking great for the coefficients for sure, with 4 sides, and especially also indeed one in the Conference League, like I touched on already. It's looking like that's really a league where you now would be able to grab a lot of points, even if you're domestically might not have the best of seasons, but the opponents. Yeah, okay. This is all with all due respect to everyone in the Conference League here as well, of course. But in comparison to the other European leagues, it looks a bit more on paper. It looks a bit more easy to grab enough points to go through and actually reach the later stages if you don't have any stupid dropped points like Gent had last season, for example, and screw yourself. But in that sense, but okay, now I'm getting ahead of myself already. But 3 or 4 teams in the European league stages, league phase would really be a big difference, and actually vital for the coefficient points this year at least.
Yeah, no, definitely, and I think that's what makes the Conference League so great. Though, is it's just like it's more competitive because you're more likely to play teams that aren't from the top 4 leagues, and that's what makes it so nice as a kind of neutral or someone that's more interested in kind of football stories from other parts of Europe that aren't kind of in your face all the time. It's quite nice to see us play against see these Belgian sides play against Estonian teams or Latvian teams or other Polish teams. Like we had obviously Agliona last year, Białystok, and that was great. A couple of players that came out of that I kind of can't believe they're still playing in Poland. Palula especially, he just completely and utterly ran circle ragged, and he's still there for some reason. So I'm just more Conference League participation, the better for me. It's definitely a highlight of the week on those Thursday evenings. Let's quickly go through a couple of transfers, and then we'll do player of the week, and then we will get to the Challenger Pro League. We will start with Leuven. They brought in Noah Dusen. Interesting return for Noah Dusen. I genuinely thought when he left Standard that'd be it. I didn't think he'd be coming back. I thought he'd be staying in Switzerland or wherever he was. So he went to the CERN, and they were they? Yeah, so they were Superliga the whole time. For some reason, my phone was telling me that they got relegated, but that happened a while ago. What was that last season? I just don't know. I can't work out on my phone.
He played in Europe this season with them already, so that would be very surprising.
Yeah, no, that's it. Footmob's having a mare. It's telling me they it doesn't know what it's doing. He scored 8 goals last season, guys. He scored 6 goals the season before. He is actually the answer to their goal scoring problems. Just stick the man up front. And he comes in and they keep a clean sheet in their first game, and he plays quite well. Good signing. What do you reckon?
This is such a funny one because Noah Dusen is one of those players who generally doesn't really impress you that much. But, you know, if you've been following Belgian football for a while, you'll remember his spell at Standard. And there was a period at Standard where, for quite a while, he was their standout player. I remember that little period quite well. Bizarre. There's obviously something about him. Again, it's the being greater than the sum of its parts thing, I think. Maybe it's his influence, his communication. I don't know. I was very underwhelmed when I saw that this was going to happen for all sorts of reasons. But Ben's just highlighted what kind of happened at Standard. He single-handedly won them quite a few points. towards the end of his time there. Literally single-handedly, scored a few goals, some standout performances. So it's a very, very odd one, this. Maybe being in that environment, an environment where, the expectations are hugely different at Leuven to Standard as well, could be kind of quite helpful. It does underline how odd Leuven's recruitment remains, though. Something we've been talking about for ages, them just kind of signing players in positions that essentially they don't really need, and not going out and getting what they do actually need. Getting their first points, their first win rather, really, really important though, because there was just a sense that things were sliding a little bit. And it could have got out of control kind of quite quickly. And obviously against Dender, it was particularly important to get that for kind of psychological reasons. Dender, but on the other hand, actually pretty worrying signs there. I think their start to the season for a whole host of reasons, largely for me personally, because I don't see how they're going to be able to improve this squad or even replace what they've lost adequately with the time left either. So I'm already a bit worried about them, albeit that it's very early. But Vincent Everard, shrewd guy, I think he will get a little bit more time than some other people might. But yeah, it's a very, very odd sign in that, really.
Yeah, also from his side, I guess, because like Ben mentioned, that's probably part of the reason why he was actually a fan favorite at Luzern as well. So like, he even said his goodbyes after a European game, like I mentioned, that's very announced his departure to the fans. That went to, I think it was a faraway place, Kazakhstan or anything like that. But that didn't. That didn't really I mean that was a bit weird because like I don't think Noe Edison has ever been the fan favorite of any side he has played that before, and he was active in Europe actually, so like that's anyway also something but that he could achieve, but okay, I'm supposing there is probably a little more money in Leuven, and that will have rolled him back, and maybe personal reasons. Who knows? Of course, there are a multitude of reasons possible for this, but whether he was the player they needed, well, apparently, indeed, like Ben mentioned, he lifted the curse of them this season. A clean sheet, a win. Everything looking rosy at the start for his spell there, of course. So that is in an interesting transfer though indeed. In a way, like I don't think anyone thinks he would be the solution for a side's defensive issues, but maybe he just brings what they need. Early days now, of course, so it's difficult to really judge that, but a good start for him there. And on Dender, of course, like Scott mentioned, Vraag probably a little bit under pressure. They didn't have the best of starts. I still also want to give them a little more time, of course. Schedler is leaving, most likely at least. I don't think it's already 100% confirmed. But also Berthe and Simba, all three of them have scored 9 goals last season. Are at the moment not fit and not able to play. So when they come back, maybe their tides can turn as well. Who knows? Still a bit early days, of course, but a bad start for them, and not a start they will have hoped for either, of course.
No, let's transition that. We can talk about that Schedler kind of imminent move to Charleroi, because that is reportedly where he is going to be going. 9 goals, like you said, Joris, in 32 games last season. Stulic is set to leave Charleroi to go to Lecce. I think reported fee was €6 million, which I think is pretty good for a player in the final year of his contract. Can't really complain about that. He'd obviously done pretty well. Took a bit of time to get going, but once he got going last season, he had a fantastic campaign. It was only natural that he probably would leave this summer. I think it was always anticipated. The Schedler signing, if he does go to Charleroi, I just can't see him as being a Stulic replacement, to be honest. Like, that to me is the Dan Heermans signing, but in reverse, where it's like it hurts Dender and it doesn't really. I just don't think it really helps Charleroi. I think he'll go there and like not. I just don't think he'll be that successful. I think he suited a Dender kind of style of scrappy play and stuff like that, and I think it's a really weak signing in the sense of nothing against him as a player. Like I think he's a good player, he's a fine player, but I just think what I just don't see how he fits into a Victor Mill system. I don't see how he's going to be successful. Like what the scouting behind it, and like what's the kind of analysis that's gone on there in terms of how he fits in with the rest of the team. You're kind of basing it off one good season in the past couple of years. Like he hasn't actually been that successful in other places. Yeah, I'm not convinced that he's going to be able to replace the goals that Stulic is leaving with. And I think by January, they're going to be searching for another striker again. Whereas with Dender, it's like that hits them really hard because he suited how they were playing. He suited kind of the way they operated, kind of low budget stuff. But I don't know if you guys have seen what the potential figure will be, but maybe it's enough for them to get someone in. And like you always said, those guys being injured and kind of out of it isn't ideal to start the season. I just don't think everyone should be under any sort of pressure after what he did last season. I think that should give him at least up until the winter break in terms of kind of banked credit for what he's done there already. And he should be kind of trusted to try and turn it around, because it's not like they're signing loads of players and the expectations are high. It's not like we might be talking about Standard Liège next weekend or next week, where it's like you've brought in quite a few players of a certain caliber that you think are actually quite good, but the manager isn't getting the best out of them. It's kind of the opposite. Like everyone got the better than what most people expected out of this team. You kind of, is there anyone else that's going to be able to come in and do that? You just know that if it is him that goes there, they'll be like the first to try and get Bernstorff if he hasn't already gone somewhere, because that'll be the situation they'll be in. And he's just the same sort of, he's good at getting the best out of players more than what you think could happen. But that's not a sustainable kind of situation to be in, because at some point those players will have to revert to what they actually are, which might be what's happening to them this season. But like guys said, it's early days still. Like the first game I watched them play, like they were creating stuff and they were still kind of quite nice to watch, and they still have some nice intricate passing play out wide and stuff like that. So the style's still there and the kind of aspects of play, and it's just, can everyone get something out of that squad when the two guys like Bert and Simba return? Like, will they, after first season of the Pro League, really kind of adapt and pick up the slack? But yeah, Schiedler and Charleroi, if I curse him and he goes on to score loads of goals, more than happy to be proven wrong. But I feel like we've seen this transfer before, and it's almost like the Nielsen to club one. It's like, it doesn't really make much sense.
Yeah, I have to correct myself here. Of course, I must have been sleeping, but that transfer has already been made official. Of course, a few days ago. So that's that quick correction of myself here. I was wondering myself, but yeah, interesting what will happen there. Like, in a way, if he's the one-on-one replacement, like if they would go from January for a striker, well, maybe Schiedler scores all his goals in the second half of the season. That's what his Stulic guy has done last season, and that he's replacing now. I guess that transfer actually also just officialized that Stulic is going to Lecce. I think that's also now official, but I'm not sure if Schiedler is the immediate replacement. I've heard through the grapevine that certain Vasquez from Anderlecht might also still be on their radar, and that's I'm not sure if that would necessarily be the same type. Well, not the same type indeed, but if that would fit the picture, or maybe that the Schedler and Vasquez together maybe is a solution for their goal scoring issues. Yeah, it's difficult. They also still have a lot of strikers, actually, I believe, at Charleroi, despite Stulic now leaving. But I think that's mainly quantity and then quality, unfortunately. Yeah, Charleroi, it mainly looks like, without going too deep further into the transfer itself, I'll leave that to maybe Scott to touch on it again, or not. Ben already said a lot, but of good points. But yeah, like Charleroi already announced a few players, defenders, I believe, now in the last week or so. And there's still a lot of rumors. The rumor mill is really stopping there. A lot of times, maybe some of these things will materialize, and that squad might look very different by the start of this after the transfer window, after the international break. Let's say.
I can't help but feel really sorry for Rick DeMel, actually, because here's a coach who, in a similar way to Wout of Rankin, is actually quite good at knitting together a really strong team spirit in his sides that is greater than the sum of its parts. One of the themes of this episode, obviously. That side has been gutted of the bits of quality that were in it. They've lost Adam Zorgan. We knew that was coming for a long time. Stulic is going for a pretty decent fee, but the incomings are pretty bloody questionable, to say the least. And again, Charleroi, another club who have in recent years a really poor recruitment record, not wanting to really spend any money, but where they are spending money, it's not being spent particularly well. If anybody can still get them into a decent position without getting the reinforcements that he probably deserves, it's somebody like Rick DeMille. He's proven that he can kind of do that, but I do feel sorry for him. You see your big hitters go and you see who's coming in or not coming in sometimes, and it must be terribly frustrating because inevitably the pressure on you increases. So I think he'll be pretty frustrated by all of that. Joris is right. I mean, right at the end of the window, we're going to see a mad flurry, as we always do. So anybody in theory could come in on loan. A rabbit could be pulled out of a hat. But I completely agree with Ben on this. I don't think Schadler is necessarily the answer to Stulic going, and I don't see ultimately how he improves them. And that's the more worrying aspect of him potentially coming in.
Yeah, no, we'll potentially be discussing a new striker maybe there. If it is Vasquez, we can kind of give our thoughts on that. I agree. I don't think that's either the solution either, but they clearly just like tall blokes. So if you're a tall bloke out there, get on the phone to the people in charge at Charleroi. Maybe you'll get a shot. Who knows? Speaking of players, that's a terrible segue, but let's quickly go through our player of the week, and then we've got a couple of things to touch on in the Challenger Pro League. Joris, I'll go to you first, because I know we actually don't have any clashes, so we're all good. Joris, your player of the week, please.
I have gone for Edan Diop from Cercle Brugge. Also he scored and he gave an assist, so that's how he an easy scoreline journalistic thing to put to reason to put him and pick him. Especially since the side he was playing in was not really scoring before 2 weeks. 2 weeks before the last two games. Now it really was not only scoring and assisting, but also was very dangerous. He probably could have scored at least once more as well. That didn't happen, but he was a constant threat. I see in FODMOB as well that he lost most duels of all players in the game. But okay, he did that. So that part maybe is not a reason why I picked him. But he did a lot of good when he had the ball, though. A lot of a high percentage of passes completed, just a lot of touches as well in general, which is not often, not always the case with players in high positions. But yes, it's just shown how the tides have turned already in this 5 game days time for both Cercle Brugge and Standaard, actually, but then in the reverse form. Cercle Brugge starting the season really badly, not scoring for 3 games, and now they already scored 7, if I'm not mistaken, over the course of the last 2 games. Standaard, on the other hand, have failed to score after in those 2 games after a reasonably good start of the campaign, and as we already touched on a little bit, already leading towards some internal pressure on Rednick as well. So Rednick, and that's really funny how things turn so quickly. But Evan Diop just part of the circular revitalization, I guess, over the past couple of weeks. And also, I really might hold my hands up high. It's very early days to do so, maybe, but of course, if they start scoring like this, then Circle might not be my relegation candidate anymore. Like as my hot take, I think, was after game day 1. It's not likely, but of course, early days, and hopefully for them, they continue like this and prove me wrong, prove my hot take wrong. It's also Ngura finally scoring, even though second time in a row, I feel like it's more the goalkeeper's fault than necessarily his goal. But nonetheless, if you don't hit it and you don't hit at the target, you can't score. So well done to him. Maybe much like with Sinterada, it gives him personally the confidence, and the goals will actually start flowing. Well, keep on flowing over the course of the next few weeks and the whole season. And the ketchup bottle, to use another cliche, has maybe been opened both for himself and for his side over the past couple of weeks. But just all in all, Diop, being a vital part of that, of that early renaissance of Cercle Brugge, and them finding the goal over the past couple of weeks, finally.
Nice. Agree with that one. Scott, over to you.
Well, I've gone for a goalkeeper this week. I really enjoyed watching Yannick Tolan. I thought he was brilliant this weekend. Obviously left Mechelen at the end of his contract, went to Antwerp to become backup goalkeeper. Started this weekend and had all the hallmarks of a performance that said, you know what? I've still got something. I want to be the regular number one. Really confident, assured performance. Looked like he was enjoying himself. I kind of enjoyed the fact, and I did wonder, I thought, is this a performance from a goalkeeper playing against his former side where that's why he's up for it, or whether, it was the bigger picture? But regardless, I thought he was really, really good. Made a number of quite good saves in the game, 7 saves in total. A couple of them were really above average saves. Nice moment on a free kick as well. Rob Scuffs trying to beat him on his near post, and Tolan eyeballing him afterwards as if to go, So I don't know if there's a bit of history there with a weak point in training with him, because obviously they'll know each other very well. But I thought he was great this weekend, and if I was on the Antwerp coaching staff, that would be giving me much pause for consideration as to who I might want my regular number one to be. Steph Wells has got a bit of a problem now because that was a nice watch this weekend. And the thing with goalkeepers is all about the body language that they exude and the influence that they have on the back line and others around them. And he certainly had that. So I saw a goalkeeper who I think could have a bit of impact unexpectedly from an Antwerp perspective this season. And I really hope they stick with him, despite having brought in somebody new. Because he was so good this weekend.
Yeah, I was surprised he was in there, but then it kind of makes sense, I think, because of the uncertainty around where Lammers was going and like if he was going to be available or not, to kind of go with someone that you're like, right, we know what we've got, we know what you bring to the league and that sort of stuff, and there's no real kind of like issues around anything else in terms of settling in. So I think if anything, it helps. Like you said, Scott, I think it kind of helps with the kind of goalkeeper transition, to be able to just like plug him in and kind of be able to play him. And then for Nozawa, it's kind of like, right, there's no pressure on you now to suddenly have to be able to perform to the level that Lammens has been performing at for the last couple of months. It's like Thielen can come in, it's kind of like, I think they do it a lot in like American football, where they get the kind of rookie quarterback and they have the kind of more experienced quarterback, and the rookie quarterback is a better player than the experienced quarterback, but they kind of keep the experienced one there just to kind of ease the rookie into it, show them the rope, show them kind of that. So I think it could work, and I think you can't really drop a goalkeeper after a performance like that, although Mechelen kind of technically did by bringing De Wolf back in after Maras had like a fantastic performance the weekend before. causing people to think maybe Marash should actually be the starting goalkeeper in Mechelen. So I think the goalkeeping situation in Mechelen has shifted somewhat. So I think that's an intriguing one to keep our eyes on over the next couple of weeks to see kind of, what happens there, because De Wolf's under some pressure now. It's not as a comfortable seat as it had been. Ironically, Thielen was also there last season, so they did have that option, but obviously they didn't run with it. My player of the week is a return to St. Truden. Mentioned a couple of players earlier. Didn't actually mention this guy. Visa Mizlu from North Macedonia. He had a great game at the back. Not just in terms of his defending, which I thought was excellent. He's kind of a real leader at the back for them coming in. Was it midway through last season from Paderborn? He's kind of really stepped up and taken kind of the role seriously, which sounds a bit ridiculous to say, but it feels like he's like, I'm going to take control of lots of situations. And it's not just that, like his ability to play the ball as well was really, really nice to see. So like, there was one point he was making like overlapping central defensive runs and stuff like that, which is kind of very kind of new era football style of play, which is quite terrifying. I still don't know if I like seeing a centre back do that. But I remember thinking, I felt like he's been involved, and I went and looked at the numbers, and it was like he had made like 8 passes into the final third. 6 of his 10 long balls were accurate, and for a side that wants to get the ball out wide and kind of really switch flanks and do that, if you've got a centre back that can actually make those passes, it makes such a difference. And as someone who's starting to get a little bit sick of seeing teams play it out from the back, it's quite nice to see teams go a little bit more direct and a little bit longer and kind of really switching those flanks, because I don't know about you guys, but I was watching some EFL football highlights the other day, and it was QPR against Coventry, and the game finished 7-1, and 4 of the 7 goals came from QPR playing it out from the back. I then watched another game, teams conceding, playing it out from the back, playing it out from the back, playing it out from the back. At some point, someone's going to cotton on and realise that we don't have to play it out from the back. We can actually go more direct, and it will be fine. Like, it's not going to be the end of the world if we do lose the ball. But at least we've lost it in the other third and not in our own box. So yeah, Bizarru was fantastic at the back. Just kept a great kind of St. Truden display. So yeah, he's my player of the week. Less to pick from obviously this week with kind of some of the other teams not playing. So it's quite nice to kind of really have a little scout around to kind of unearth players. And I think we've picked 3 quite rogue choices, I guess you could say, not your average. And I'm not sure that those 3 will ever come up again as player of the weeks together, let alone 2 of them, to be honest. But I'll be shocked if that does happen. Let's drop into the Challenger Pro League. The eagle-eared of you would have noticed that we've been unable, unfortunately, to drop in our Challenger Pro League preview show. We were kind of hoping to do one before the season started, but then there was so much uncertainty around when the season was going to begin. We just have not had the time, to be honest, to sit down and do it. Like, we even struggled last week to get a regular episode in. So yeah, I'm sorry for those of you who are looking forward to that. We're pretty gutted that we couldn't do it, but we are hopefully going to give the CPL a little bit more airtime this season, especially this evening, a little bit longer than we normally do, just to kind of talk through things, because we obviously are completely up and running in that. Scott, I'll go to you quickly for the results, and then I've put 2 teams down here, and I'm intrigued to see what you guys think, if these are the 2 teams that will be the top 2 come the end of the season and are the 2 teams to beat.
Well, Matchday 3 in the Challenger Pro League. Patronised 2, Club Next 1, Young Ghent 1, Beerschot 1, Molenbeek 0, Beveren 2, Young Genk and Sarang finished goalless. Liers beat Eupen 3-2. Frank Baran and Lommel finished goalless. Olympic Charleroi lost 3-0 to Kortrijk, and Lokeren, who are struggling once again, lost 1-0 to RFC Liège. So quite an interesting start to the season, guys. And Kortrijk and Beveren leading the early pace. Beveren, interestingly, the only side in the top 2 divisions yet to concede so far this season.
And those are the 2 teams I want to talk about. So I think when I was kind of checking who was doing what in the CPL, Kortrijk's like business this summer has actually quite impressed me. Like, managerial hire, Michel Jonquelet coming in, I thought that's a great pickup in terms of like. I know obviously I said David Hubert wasn't a great pickup as a young Belgian coach, but this is the level where you can really pick up these kind of guys that have gone through those kind of systems, and he's been doing quite a lot of coaching within Club Bruges, and I feel like he was a smart pickup. Obviously, he used to play there as well. Transfer wise, they've been pretty shrewd. They've picked up players from Dender. They've picked up some other players from other places as well. That it seems a little bit better than kind of the transfer policy they've been following in recent years. Thierry Ambrose is still there and scoring goals as well. How long that will happen, how long he'll stay for, obviously remains to be seen. But yeah, having someone like that seems pretty good. I think in my mind they're the early kind of favourites. And then I was kind of thinking, is it RWDM? Is it Molenbeek? Obviously, almost daring Brussels, or is it Beveren? And are Beveren going to be that side? Obviously, like you said, Scott, they've started really well. Is this the season they're finally going to properly put it together? They've been down there for long enough. I think most Beveren fans would say. I think they well and truly should have gone up. And I feel like they're kind of the missed season for them was that Thierry Barry season. Obviously, Everton fans will know Thierry Barry's name. Really made a name for himself, to be honest, in the CPL. That's where he really kind of kick-started his career proper with that season he had at Beveren and then moving obviously to Switzerland and then to Spain. So is this finally the season Beveren are going to do it? Do we think they are a favourite, or do we think they'll have a kind of another end up in the playoffs and then struggle to get out of the playoffs campaign? And Kortrijk as well. Do you guys agree with me that Kortrijk are kind of the team to beat this year?
I'm not surprised that both those sides have started quite well, actually. Obviously, Thierry Ambrose is on 4-3 now, so big shout out to him, actually. Nobody's talking about that, of course, because of the league that he plays in. I remember Ben saying right at the start of the season, there's still a possibility that, he could yet get whisked away on a punt bet by somebody. That may yet happen. I think there's quite a lot of interest in him. That could be quite a shrewd pickup for somebody. I think how Kortrijk's season pans out could depend ultimately on whether they're able to hold on to him or not. And if an interesting offer comes in, then, they're not necessarily in a particularly strong bargaining spot, Kortrijk, for financial reasons. So, yeah, and I think he would probably be quite keen to move on, so he's doing his best to put himself in the shop window. Beveren actually have quite a decent squad on the whole, I think. Some of those players are perhaps past their best in that Beveren squad, but I think they have a squad who can compete at this level well enough and consistently enough to be one of the top two sides to go up. So I think it's a possibility. I think a strong start was important for them because, in recent years, in their attempts to get out, they've started poorly, and that's kind of, the atmosphere has turned a little bit early, and that's been a problem before some late momentum has kind of come back, and there's been a late charge, but ultimately it's been too little too late. So I think they have the right tools about them in that squad to kind of do well. They've added a bit of experience. Of course, Bruno Godot's in there now as well. He scored this weekend and had a really solid game. So there are players who at this level and ultimately at Pro League level probably would be able to still compete a little bit. So there's a sense that maybe they're building a squad that could do something beyond this season as well, which is important. I don't see many other sides at the moment who I think are going to put together, a really, really serious challenge this year. I think Patra will be in and about the mix just because they managed to maintain enough consistency during the course of a season to kind of not be too far away. Lommel are an interesting one because they've kind of pivoted their recruitment strategy a little bit. They're going a bit more, they're going more Flemish. They're getting back in touch with their roots, which will please a lot of people, which I can understand. The English cohort, if you like, short of their coach, of course, seems to have largely left the club in terms of its influence. And are going down a more domestic recruitment route, and I find that interesting. and they've had an okay start to the season, I think, and have been performing all right too. Olympic Charleroi struggling, not unsurprisingly, at the start of the season. I kind of expected them to kind of tank for a while. I do wonder whether it's going to be one of those situations where when Lokeren came back up, they had the first 8 or 9 weeks were just an absolute disaster for them before they kind of found their feet and acclimatised a little bit and managed to hold on. Bizarrely, of course, they finished the season, Lockery, kind of quite strongly last year, and there was some quite strong words coming out of their camp that they were really going to go for it this year, only for them to start really, really badly, really badly, all things considered. So perhaps they need to do their talking on the park. I think the academy sides have started on the whole a little bit better than I expected as well. So maybe they're a little bit better prepared. Something to watch out for is how the non-academy sides generally fare against the academy sides, because we've seen in the last couple of years particularly, most of the non-development sides have kind of struggled to get points in these games when they probably shouldn't. A motivational issue, things like that. But yeah, certainly an interesting start to the season, and I think Kortrijk and Beveren will probably be in and about the mix for the majority of the season, I think, even if Kortrijk do lose Thierry Ambrose. I think, like Ben says, they've brought in a good coach and are quite well placed to have a decent shot at straight promotion.
That was a very well-rounded summary of Scott, but I agree with some things like Kortrijk, even Bro stays or not, will be a big one, I think, to be honest. If they can maintain him, yeah, he should be good enough at this level for sure. Lommel, I'm not counting out either. Although they have just sold Koki Saito, of course, to QPR. So that is a big loss. On the other hand, I don't think he had anything to learn in the Challenger Pro League anymore either. But yeah, Lommel is always a weird one. But looking at their squad, I feel like every year we say the same, so that's why I'm not putting in as the main favorites maybe, but like they could be doing well as well. And like so far they have a decent start. Not a flying one, but a decent one at least. So yeah, that's a outsider. Beerschot also. I know it's not easy with their finances, but on paper that squad doesn't look so terrible. So maybe up front they might need something still. But as long as Van den Ende keeps on scoring the goals, he already has 3 as a central defender. That might not be that big of an issue, but they might need some more prowess up front, goal scoring prowess there. But yeah, apart from that, yes, these sides, Kortrijk, Beerschot, Beveren, Lommel, Lokeren most likely, Lokeren probably not this season at least. But yeah, that could be an interesting fight to see. Yeah, I think most likely those are the sides they're already on top. Maybe Patro indeed, so always a bit of a wild card as well. And who knows what Liège will do? They've had a good start after an initial loss. Despite that, they climbed up the tables already, and yeah, I think it will probably come from those sides. I think that's a bit of the way the division is balanced at the moment, and looks like might already be early stages, and then really going the direction like has more or less as expected. So I see a lot of contenders, but I do think indeed Kortrijk with their current squads should be at least in the top 2 sides, so we should be able to promote. Ultimately, Beveren, yeah, we'll have to see, wait and see. Well, we did with any side, of course, but I'm less hung up about at the moment. But they do have a really good squad as well. Though I looked at it as well, and that's for a Challenger Pro League side. That is a really good side. But yeah, will it keep on clicking? It remains a question. But if they don't concede at all, then that will help, of course. That definitely. Ultimately, I'm not sure if these two will be the sides that will get promoted, but I do indeed see them as favorites, or among the favorites at least, together maybe with 2 or 3 other sides that we all touched on already over the course of the last 10 minutes.
Yeah, no, agree with both of you guys, because I kind of said that's what I thought at the beginning, and then you agreed with me, so that's great. Added a couple of names in there as well. And as Charleroi, you've kind of touched on it, Scott. That was I was thinking. It seems like they've need some time to adapt. I think this is the year we finally see Solan get relegated. I think it's about time that they're going to go. I think you could probably quite easily have put money on that at the beginning of the season, and you'd be getting some money back at the end of the season, because it's just been a slow and steady decline for quite some time now. But that's the Challenger, that's the Pro League, that's European football, all wrapped up nicely in just over an hour's time. What more could you want? Guys, it's been great to be back with you. Looking forward to hopefully celebrating every team making it into Europe next week. That'd be great.
Yep, same time next week for the big celebration. Have a great week, everyone.
Oh, no spoilers.
We could have just cursed it, but who knows? As per usual now, if you've been listening to this, you know what I'm about to say. If you like what we do, please leave a review on your podcast app of choice. If you've already done that and you want to contribute in more financial ways, you can donate to us at buymeacoffee.com. Link is in the show notes at the end. Also, links to the Substack Scott has currently been writing on Belgian football, well worth a read every single week, straight into your inbox. You don't even have to go looking for it. It just comes straight to you. Again, what more could you want? And hope everyone has a great week, and we'll speak to you very soon on another episode of the Belgian Football Podcast.